So let's start from the medicine perspective. We have a mother who has a child who has epilepsy, and they tried everything. And you know, the medicinal parts of the marijuana was the only thing that has helped them, deal with this debilitating disease because he was having a lot of seizures. Um, in the United States, we are behind the ball because in Israel they are very advanced as far as this goes. At NYU, I know there is a doctor there, Levinsky, who's been doing research on this. And you should see a documentary of what they make him, do to safeguard the cannabis that he's using with his patients. So, from your perspective, how can we help our patients and their, parents, spouse, or just their family members have access to the medicinal part of cannabis that they need? Anyway, you guys have all different perspectives, different venues to look at this.
So I'm with Sativa, and I think a lot of what was discussed in the first panel about the restrictions in the medical program should be addressed, like the affordability, the high barrier of entry, and patient access. So what we can do is educate, and the state puts a lot of restrictions on what a registered organization is allowed to say in the marketplace for marketing. So we're not able to do the sort of traditional advertising that you would see in another company. It's not the same thing as opening a Verizon store in the neighborhood. There's a lot of different restrictions, and there's a lot of issues that get in the way of us being able to do the education. So that's why, like Lynette and Satya, we're all here today because this is the best way that we can interact with the community to help engage, educate people, to let them know, A, do you even qualify for the program, which most people do. And this, I can tie into the whole social justice component, is that post-traumatic stress disorder was now added to the list of qualifying conditions.
Can you state what the qualifying conditions are for people who might not know?
Off the top of my head, sure. Let's give it oral. So there's chronic pain, cancer, neuropathy, ALS, MS, Parkinson's, epilepsy, post-traumatic stress, opiate, HIV, and opiate replacement therapy. So if you were going to be prescribed an opiate for something, you're now able to be eligible for medical cannabis. Before, the law was written the opposite way. In fact, it said you had to try and exhaust all other options before you could qualify for medical cannabis. It's craziness. So now you're allowed to substitute something that's natural, and instead of going towards an opiate. The other thing is that the products that are offered in New York is not as straightforward as accessing flour, which is more affordable for people. Everything's been processed into an oil and made into different delivery methods, so the capital that's invested with the registered organizations is very high because you have to have all the analytical equipment and all the production gear to make and process this oil in a very pure manner. So there's a lot of issues with the restrictedness of the program, but I think with keeping meetings like this going and working together, we can kind of open the program up and get more people involved. But back to the post-traumatic stress disorder thing, a lot of communities that have been impacted by the drug war with broken families and all of the issues that we're seeing surface now because of the prohibition of cannabis, I think really rings true in the post-traumatic stress disorder framework, because now you'd be eligible to participate as a patient legally in the community. And what we're trying to do at Sativa is put forth a social justice program and a workforce development program. So we would work with nonprofit legal organizations to help seal the records for people who are coming out of prison. Once that process is done, then we would work with reentry nonprofit programs to help people heal and have therapy with their families and address their post-traumatic stress disorder. And then once the healing has gone underway and starts to actually manifest itself where people are willing and ready to learn, then we enroll you in our workforce development program. And I think all the ROs, and I know Lynette had asked what can we do as ROs to help further this mission, and I think the ROs have a responsibility to provide the resources that we were forced into having by the government to utilize these resources to help communities come in and learn from seed to sale. What are the different career paths? What are jobs that are available? So you can learn and then you can open your own business. So these are programs that I've developed internally with Sativa, and we're trying to work with other nonprofits in the community. So I'm here at Community Board 9 because I'd like to know whoever the reentry and nonprofit program people are in your community, please see me, talk to me. I want to put this together. I've talked to elected officials about this. I will talk to anyone who will listen. So I'll show now, sorry.
About the conditions. I think something that people should know, and this is very interesting, and it gives me a certain perspective on where the state is at about this. Last year, every year there's a Cannabis World Expo, which is more of a business thing than anything else. That's Java Center. I spoke last year on a panel with Josh Vinciguerra, who's the head of the DEA, basically, for New York State. And I was very wary. Oh my God, DEA, they're very supportive. And on the panel, I said, look, at this point, we had 50,000 patients who had been certified. And I said, is New York State doing any data analysis? I mean, okay, we can't do this double-blind, placebo-controlled studies, but, what are we doing with the data? We said, well, actually, we are. And it turned out that they were doing something that a lot of other states have done in the past, and in fact, it's been published, like in JAMA. They were looking at the physician monitoring program, which is, people who are getting narcotics, and they noticed that chronic pain patients were getting many fewer prescriptions for chronic pain, for narcotics for chronic pain. They were using cannabis instead. And not long after that, they passed the 13th condition, which had two parts. One was that somebody could come to me, somebody has opioid use disorder, they can come to me and I can wean them off of opiates using a high CBD product. But the second thing, which I think is even more important, is that they said if somebody has acute pain, so I was an ER doctor for years, if somebody was to come to me tomorrow who broke their ankle, I could actually get them certified, they could get an emergency card that day, they could go to a dispensary, technically that day, they would never have to get opiates. And I think that's an amazing thing that New York State recognizes that cannabis really works. They are saying to me, and I think they were throwing down the gauntlet to all these institutions. I'm part of Northwell. I've been harassing them for a couple of years. Give me the opportunity. We all recognize, they're saying to you, okay, somebody would never have to get an opiate for an acute pain condition. So I just want to say that, and I applaud New York State for that.
I just want to get back to the original question real quick for a second. So I'm a clinical pharmacist with Curaleaf, and I think that we do a lot of patting ourselves on the back for the medical program in New York because it really has opened up legal access for a lot of patients, right? And a lot of our patients that we see are self-medicating. But there's a very real issue that you've highlighted is that we have patients that are benefiting from this medicine and it can't be administered to them. If it's a child in school, the school's afraid of losing federal funding, so the school nurse does not want to give that child cannabis. If you have an elderly grandparent in a nursing facility, if they can self-administer, that's fine. But if you have a combative Alzheimer's patient that can't self-administer, the nurse is not going to administer it. So there's still a lot of work to be done policy-wise to open up. Yeah. To open up access so that patients who need this medicine can receive it, and more importantly, can receive it wherever they happen to be, not just at home. And I think that that's really important to keep in mind that we're doing everything we can to increase access, right? So we have a diverse workplace, we offer free delivery, our prices are the lowest in the industry, but there's a much bigger picture to access that not everyone sees because of the federal schedule of the drug, and it all starts there. We cannot do clinical research because it's federal Schedule 1. It's so difficult to get a license to do a study because you have to be showing harm through the National Institute of Drug Abuse. You can't do a traditional clinical study because that's what a Schedule 1 means. It means the drug has no clinical benefit. So there are so many restrictions, even for the medical program, that the federal schedule has caused that we really need to be thinking about as far as creating this framework for policy that's really going to serve patients.
Oh, question, is it possible for a state to take that study on?
What do you mean?
Study.
Good luck.
In terms of research, as you're saying.
So Yes and no. So we can do observational study framework, and that's what we're partnering with. Dr. Weinberg's one of them that we're having a conversation with to try and do, because the other side is if you get an approved study through the government, you have to use the federal government plant that's at the University of Mississippi that's representative of the cannabis from like 1960. It's not relevant to what's in the dispensaries in New York. So how do we get actual data on what's in the dispensaries in New York and what's helping patients in New York when we can't get approval for a study? So we do that through observational studies. We partner with our clinicians, create a framework so that the patients get a standardized dose so we can monitor their progress. That's something that we take very seriously because it all comes back to stigma and it all comes back to data and research and being able to show clinically that this fear that we're talking about the Long Island and Westchester people have of this stigma and this reefer madness, this is how we can help dispel it. And this is where the ROs can really be that bridge between the communities. We're here because we care, we're here because we want to be involved, and we want to stop this ridiculous idea that people have of what cannabis use is. It's nonsense that people can come home and have a glass of wine every day, and that's completely socially acceptable, but we have to be afraid for our professional jobs because I have a medical cannabis card. Like, what kind of nonsense is that? You know what I mean? So I think that it all starts with education.
So, just real quick more on that, so when data is being collected, is the intent that it would be shared widely?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Across the board?
It takes a while. Studies don't happen overnight. It takes months to set up the framework. You have to get institutional review board approval, and then you have to collect the data and process the data. So it's a long process. I wish it were faster. And we actually did speak with the Department of Health, and they are collecting data on the current patients in the program that they're planning on putting out soon. And I think that will really help, because it's exactly what Dr. Weinberg was saying. Like, they know that opioid prescriptions are down. We know that drug abuse is less, and it's also misconstrued. So just having access to that data, I think, is going to be really important.
So Harvard just endowed a private investor just endowed Harvard with $9 million to fund something exactly like this. Would that be something Curaleaf or Ianthus might be open to funding here in New York State or in New York City?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are conversations we have all the
So
time,
that's a
and
yes?
that I cannot give you a hard yes. I do
That's a
not
yes?
represent my legal legally of my company, but yeah, exactly.
We're doing our own data collection. Obviously, we have to do our own data collection. The state BioTrack system is connected to all of the ROs, and they have more data than all of us because it's all combined. Now, are they tracking symptom mitigation and efficacy of which products? No, they're not. That's what we are going to be doing individually in the dispensary. But yes, you have our commitment that we're working on it. Like Sativa, when they didn't get the first license, they took their money and went to Jamaica and partnered with a hospital and an educational institution in Jamaica because it's not federally illegal there. So we're committed to doing that. It's just we're not allowed to here. So
You're not allowed to make a private endowment?
no, we're not allowed to federally.